Morning. We're learning as a special for Shleiman Pilan Chayav Aserach. We're on Daf Gimel Amud Beis Mesechtas Menachos. For those who haven't been paying attention, we're starting the third answer. If you remember, we had the steers in Rav Shimon. That in one place Rav Shimon says, if you do a mincha, let's say a machvas l'shem marcheshes, you do a mincha shalei l'shma. In one place, Rav Shimon says, since it's maseh meichichin, it's clear that what you're saying is not what you're doing, that we could disregard what you said, and therefore it will be a fully kosher mincha. It will be a kosher mincha, and it will be al l'ba'al l'shem chayva. But another mincha will be Allah b'ayil Moshem chayva. So you see, it will be, if it's a chatas, then it will be entirely pasul, and if it's like a asham, it will be kosher, but like Allah b'ayil Moshem chayva. So he says, so you see that he's treating it like any other shalai lishma, just like it says in our Mishnah. So it's a steer. So we saw Rabbah and Rava. Rabbah said it depends on whether he's doing it l'shem mincha or l'shem zebach, and Rava said it depends on whether he said whether it was a shina kodesh or a shina bailam. And I'm going to see the third answer, Rav Ashi's answer. Rav Ashi amalei kasha kam b'kaim it's machvas l'shum shtum machashes, kam b'kaim it's minchas machvas l'shum minchas machashes. And the Gemara explains it depends on whether he said, when he said I'm doing it shaloi lishma, the person who made did he say, I'm bringing this as a machvas, which is a thin, fried type of flour, of a mincha, or a machashas, or if he said, I'm doing it, l'shem, I'm making it, I want it to be a thicker pan. But in that case, we're going to ignore what he says, and it's going to be entirely kosher. But then it's going to be a regular shalei lishma, which will be kosher v'le'al l'bayim l'shem chayv. The Gemara explains. What is he saying? He's saying I'm having lishma of this machashes, this deep pan. What does that mean? You're thinking about a deep pan? It's you're daydreaming. What do you? A deep pan is not a thing. It's not a kind of carbon. It's just a pan. You're thinking about kitchen implements. You're having a machshava. It's like you're saying, I'm doing it l'shem Kermit the Frog. Doesn't have any relevance to kachim. It's only if you say a mincha that is made in a deep pan. He says, I'm doing this mincha l'shem, a mincha that's done in a deep pan, which has some meaning. That's what the Gemara says. He's thinking about the utensil. Thinking about a utensil is not going to passel. It's going to be disregarded. Minchas machvas or shum minchas machashes, but mincha de pasla ba machshava kamachashem. In that case, he's thinking about a kind of mincha, and that a machshavas shaloi lishma about a mincha that could make it that it's loy al l'ba'al l'shem chayv. In fact, the Gemara, the same question like we had asked in Rava, but Rav Shimon had said his reason of why a mincha l'shem mincha, that he said that if you do a mincha shaloi l'shma, it's going to be kosher and it's going to be al l'ba'al l'shem chayv. He says, he said the reason is because he's saying that he's doing a machvas, but it really looks like a machashas. So we could disregard it because of that. Why are you saying this new thing? That it's because he's talking about a pan, which is not a machshava that has to do with the mincha, with kachim. So Gemara Hachi Kamar, the same thing like we had said in Rava, we had the same question that he explains Rav Shimon that it comes because of a pasuk. So over here we're saying Rav Shimon comes because of he's thinking about a pan, which is not relevant to kachim. it says my said that Rav Shimon said his reason because Maseh Mechichan Allah. He turns around what Maseh Mechichan Allah means. Even though it's a machshava that it's clear that what he's saying is not true, and that's more of a reason to say it should be possible. If you say something that's clearly a lie, you're saying I'm having a machshava. I want this carbon to be for a machvas, even though he's holding a marcheshes. So it's clear that he's saying something that's false. That's more of a reason that it should be possible. But even so, that's what he's saying. He's saying even so, it's going to be kosher because of his reason, like he said, because you're not discussing something that is relevant to kosher. You're talking about stama marcheshes without a minchas marcheshes. And what is Rav Shimon also had said that by zvachim this is not the din. What does that have to do with zvachim? So even though by kachim, by zvachim, well, we don't have the clear evidence that what he's saying is not true. So that's more of a reason that it should be kosher. It should be Allah b'al l'shem chayv. Since by Zvicha he's saying, I want it to be l'shem oilo, l'shem when it's a shlom, and he says l'shem oilo, vice versa, or chatas, or a ashram l'shem shlomim. Since he's talking about kachim, it's a machshavas shaloi l'shma, which would make it that it's loy oilo b'al l'shem chayva, in spite of the fact that we think that it should be kosher because it's not as clear that what he's doing is incorrect. That is Rav Ashi's pshat. Amalei Rav Acha Breidu Rav Rav Ashi. Chareva Mishim Blula. In the brisa of Rav Shimon, we had said two things. We said if you do a machvas al shem machashes, which Rav Ashi explained that that's going to be kosher because he's talking about something that's not relevant to kosher. He's calling it a machvas, which is not a kind of carbon. So what about it? But Rav Shimon also said a charei b'mishum blul if he does a dry mincha instead of a mixed mincha. Amaya Rav Shimon, Amaya Rav Shimon. Why would Rav Shimon say in that case a belula is obviously a reference to a mincha? It means a mixed in mincha. It's not a type of pan that you say he's saying I'm doing it l'shem the pan. It's a kind. It's a description. It's something that's mixed. He says no. You can have the same pshat in blula. If it's supposed to be a dry mincha, it said originally I'm dedicating a dry mincha, and now he's saying I want it to be a mixed one. He means to say you would say he's saying I want it to be a mixed thing. He's not talking about a mincha at all. It's the same thing like a pan when you're making the carbon l'shem a pan. It's Rav Shimon says we disregard it, and it's a kosher a carbon, it's a kosher mincha. The same thing does l'shem bila. It means just l'shem something that's mixed, without necessarily a reference to kosher. Zakdamara ihachi l'shem shlamim nami l'shem shlamim ba'alma. If you say when someone says I want to do l'shem machbas, or he says I want to do l'shem bila, we disregard what he's saying according to Rav Ashi because it's not talking about kosher. When someone says I'm doing l'shum shlomim by a carbon, he's bringing oil and he says I want it to be l'shum shlomim. Let's say what he means is I'm doing it for peace on earth. Shlomim, what does shlomim mean? It's called a shlom because it brings shalom. So let's say he means peace on earth. It has nothing to do with the carbon. So the Gemara gives the obvious answer. Hachi hashta hasam zeva gufa ekri shlomim. Over there we call a carbon shlomim a shlomim. You have to say carbon shlomim. When you say shlomim, you're talking about a carbon shlomim. The Chsev HaMakav is dama shlomim. The Torah calls it a shlomim. Hazarik is dama shlomim. Someone who brings the dam of the carbon of the shlomim, or he throws the dam of the shlomim. Hacha mincha gufa miikri belula. Do we call a mincha a belula? The Torah doesn't call it a belula. It says the way it should be made belula. It's an adjective. It's not its proper name. Masha'inkin shlom. Don't say when it says shlomim it means peace, because the shlom is a proper name for the carbon shlom. We do see it's called a mincha belula b'shemen. It says it's called a belula b'shemen. It's called mixed with oil. That's what the Torah calls it. It's still an adjective. It doesn't call it just a belula. Shlamim is called a shlamim. Of mincha is called a mincha belula. It's not called a belula. Zok the Gemara. So now we give a summation. Kula karabba layamri. Why don't they say like Rabbah? The Rabbah had said the pshat that it depends on whether it's l'shem a mincha or it's l'shem a zevach. The other Rabbah machshava the mincha pasal rachmana. They both had learned the ma'aseh meichichen to mean exactly the opposite. That it means that it's more of a reason, the fact that it's a machshava that is clearly not true. That's a reason that it should be possible. And Rabbah was understanding it, that it means, hold on, Rabbah was the one who said, it depends on, he said Shini Kodesh, Shini Bailam. So he said by Shini Kodesh, it's Masay Mechichem, Shilu Bailam, it's not Masay Mechichem. But they didn't understand Masay Mechichem the way he did. They said the fact that it's Machshava de Minkara, that it's the more that it's obvious that it's not true, the more reason it should be a puzzle of carbon. Rava had said that when you have two menachos, he's bringing a mincha l'shem, a different mincha. The Torah says Torah achas l'chol ha-menachos, that it doesn't make a difference what machshava, it's going to be kosher. But they don't make that drasha. And they didn't say like the other two didn't say like Ravashi because of the kasha that we said from Belula and Charev. This question of Rabbah, the way Rabbah had understood it and the way Rava had understood it, Rabbi Hoshia was torn about it. The boy Rabbi Hoshia, Mincha l'shum zevach mali. What's the din? Is it going to be considered a Shini Kodesh when you do a Mincha l'shum zevach? So according to Rabbah, he was mechalik between a Mincha l'shum Ravam. I forgot which one is Rav and Rav. I'm sorry, but the one man that had said a Mincha l'shum zevach is going to be it's going to be lo ya'alul l'valim shem chayva. But a Mincha l'shum mincha is going to be, since the Torah says Torah achas, so all l'chol ha-menachos, so all minchas are going to be kosher and alul b'alim b'shem chayva. The other man, the Amma says no, a mechalik between whether he did a mincha, it made a shini kodesh or a shini b'alim. It doesn't make a difference whether he did it l'shem zevach. Amar of Shimon, time of Shimon mishum machshava de mincha le'pasla. So. Do we say that it's because of Masaya Meichichen Allah, like the first pshat, like Rabbah had said, where he was machali between whether he said it's l'shem mincha or l'shem zevach, l'shem bailam, I'm sorry. Like Rabbah had said, v'zevach like siv. And by zevach it doesn't say teres mincha. Doesn't say Zayis Teres HaMincha v'Zevach. It just says Teres HaMincha. Amalei Klum Meganav L'Soif Dai Teshur Shimon. He said, so he answered back to him. So he had inquired, which way are we going to understand Rav Shimon? And he said, we have a steer in Rav Shimon. We don't know what the answer of Rav Shimon is. So you have to leave it. You have to leave it. We don't know. In one place Rav Shimon said that it's Allah Ba'al M'Shem Chaim. In one other place he had said not. Karabale Mishanale Mishum Kusha Dabai, Karabale Mishanale Mishum Kusha V'Zois Tyrus Hachatas. He didn't say because Rabbah, because of Kasha V'Abaya when we had brought the Svara of Rabbah. Karabale Mishanale Mishum Kusha V'Zois Tyrus Hachatas. That it also says, it doesn't just say Zois Tyrus Hamincha, says Zois Tyrus Hachatas. So why don't you say by Hachatas also that he does the Machshava Shaloi L'Shma? It should be Allah B'Alim Shem Chayva. And again, Rav Ashi, we have the problem from Chareva and Belula. Okay, that is the end of that discussion, right? So we had since all the way pretty much since right after the Mishnah, we had this discussion of why is it that Rav Shimon seems to disagree with our Mishnah says a din that when you bring a mincha shaloi lishma, it's loy alu l'baylim l'shem chayva. And Rav Shimon had said that it is alu l'baylim l'shem chayva. Now we're going to go to the next part of the Mishnah. The Mishnah had said, which really is parallel to the first Mishnah in Zvachim. The first Mishnah in Zvachim had said that when you bring a carbon shaloi lishma, should we open the door? This person has been banging for like 10 minutes.
The code is right there.
What?
Oh, it's banging. The one that has a code?
Yeah, no, he's banging on this door over here. I don't know. Oh, let me go get it because it's distracting me. No. I don't know. I'm not going to buy it.
In the sour, people deliver.
Yes. Interesting. Why would we think that the place would be open for deliveries?
Yeah.
10 to 7. So now the Gemara is moving on to what we discussed in the Mishnah. We said that although that a mincha l'shem mincha is alu l'bayil l'shem chayva, there are certain types of menachos, a minchas chayta and a minchas kanayis, that are just like by zvachim, a chatas and a pesach is a loy alu, it's puzzle altogether. The minchas kanayis and the minchas chayta are also going to be puzzle altogether. They're an exception to what we said in the Mishnah, that the general rule is that a mincha l'shem mincha is kosher v'lo l'shem chayva. These are not even kosher at all. They're totally puzzle. Minchas kanayis is the saita, right? Right. A minchas chayta is for like an oil of a carbon oil of a yared. That we had said that if someone like doesn't have enough money, he could bring the ifis and then he could bring a mincha. So those minchas are kind of a chatas. Really, it's for an avera, for those specific 3 averas. And minchas kanayis is a carbon that's brought in part of the saita process. It's called a chatas. So, and it's just like we said by zvachim, by karbonis, that a chatas shaloi l'shma is also pasul. So this is going to have the same thing as a chatas by a carbon. You'll have the same, a parallel thing by a minchas chayta will be treated just like a chatas by a carbon. Ela minchas kanayis minan. Where do we know minchas kanayis? What does it have to? Why is it pasul? So the Tana Kameder of Nachum. Minchas kanayis moisr nedava. If someone sets aside money to bring a minchas kanayis, and there's extra money after he gets the mincha, the extra money becomes an nedava. It's used to buy carbon oil. Amalei shapakamet maskeres oven ksiba. The reason why it's brought as the moisture is brought as an nedava is because it says maskeres oven by the minchas kanayis. And it says also lashon oven by a chatas. Since we have come across this before, if you have extra money of a chatas, that is used for l'kayetz hamizbeach, to buy an oila for the mizbeach. The extra money is also used as an nedava to buy an oila. So we learn out the minchas kanayis is similar to a chatas in this regard, if it's meiser nedava. And it says, so now the Gemara says, okay, chatas machatas psula shaloi lishma, av mincha kanayis psula shaloi lishma. Once we're comparing a minchas kanayis to a chatas, we legabe this meiser nedava. We'll also do it for our inyan, our question, that it's going to be just like the minchas chayta, that it's going to be learned out from chatas. The minchas kanayis are also learned out from chatas, from this oven, to tell you that it's going to be shaloi lishma's possible. Once you're saying oven tells you that minchas kanayis is shaloi lishma possible, why don't we say the same thing by an asham, which our Mishnah did not say that an asham is shaloi lishma, or back in Zvachim we didn't say that. Why? Because the gama oven mechatas. We learn out oven from chatas for an asham as well. Sagt Gemara, done an oven may oven, may done oven may avoina may oven. By Asham it says Vinasa avoinai. Asham he avoina yisa, something like that. So it's not exactly the same lashon. By Chatas it says avoin, by Asham it says avoina. Sagt Gemara, my nafkamina vatan the baby Shmuel. You should be familiar by now. V'shava kainu ba'akain zui shiva zui bia. We say legabe mitzara, we make exeris shava. And it says in one place v'shava kain, another place it says u'ba'akain, which are entirely different words. But we say since it means the same thing, it means the person's coming back, the kain's coming back. It's a valid exeris shava. So how could you say if you say that two entirely different words that have the same meaning we make exeris shava? How could you say oven and avoinoi? You don't make exeris shava. But and additionally, it says by chatas, by shmias koil is actually one of the oilus v'yar. Someone who doesn't say his edus, the Torah says he has to bring a chatas, and it's called v'nosa avoinai. So you see, by chatas it also has a lashon avoinai. So even if you're going to stick to your guns and you're going to be obstinate and say, I want to be mechalik between oven and avoinai, but we have avoinai by chatas as well. So why don't you make a gzeir shava to learn out asham from chatas and say asham also should be pasul shaloi l'shmai? So the Gemara, ki gamri gzeir shava l'moisin adava hu de gamri. The Gemara says no. We said there's a gzeir shava of oven to tell you minchas. You learn out a minchas kenoyis from a chatas legabe that the mois and nedava. There's extra money. It goes for oilos nedava, but it's only for that. The gzeir shav is only for that. It's not also telling you lishma, and therefore you can't learn out asham from it, and you also can't learn out chatas from it. But you also can't learn out minchas kenoyis that shaloi lishma is going to be possible. And if you'll say, there's no such thing. If once it's a gzeir shava, you should learn out everything from one another. So tomorrow, no. Gali rachmana gabe chatas shachar oisel chatas oisel lishma ksher shaloi lishma psula. I will call kachim bein lishma and bein shaloi lishma ksherim. We have a pasuk that tells you to limit the gzeir shava. Since it says v'shachar oisel chatas, that tells you that only a chatas is lishma ksher and shaloi lishma pasuk. But everything else, even shaloi lishma, is going to be kosher v'leil b'am shem chayva. But now we're back to our original question. Minchas chayta. See, we made things worse for ourselves, right? Originally we said we learn out minchas chayta from chatas with a gzeir shava. Then we said, and we also have a gzeir shava for minchas chayta, for minchas kenoyis. But then we asked, if you say minchas kenoyis, then you should also say asham. And now, so we had to say, Oisa tells you that the pasuk of by chatas is limited to chatas. It means only chatas is shaloi lishma psula. So now we don't have a pasuk even for what we originally were okay with for the minchas chayta. So we don't have a. So we're back to the original question. Why is it that we say a minchas chayta and a minchas kenoyis? It's if you bring it shaloi lishma is going to be pasul. A minchas chayta minchas kenoyis the psul and shaloi lishma and midalan. So chatas time in my mishum d'chseba he who. It says he, but the pasuk is actually who. There's the pasuk. The samach yad al reisha so v'shachat oisei b'makam hashiyitras ha'oila le'Hashem chatas who. Achanami except who. It also says who by minchas kenoyis and a minchas chayta. It says in Lesasi Yadil Shtei Soim Shnei Bnei Yaina Behavius Kabane Shechata Susei Vesel Lechatas L'Shem Leitin Le'Levaina Ki Chatas he and who is the same thing. So that's by a minchas chayta, and it says the Gabi Kenois Behavius Ishtela Kain Behavius Kabane Leas Yuseifa Kam Soim Yisrael L'Shem Leitin Le'Levaina Give minchas Kenois who. So we have a Gzeir Shava. It says who by Chatas, and it says he or who by minchas chayta and minchas kenais. So that's how we know that they're also going to have the din that if you do shaloi lishma, it's entirely possible. So the Gemara, correct the Gemara. My time is in the Sibah. Achanami exebahu. Correct the Gemara. Ashanami exebahu. who. It says who by Asham also. So we're back having the same question like we had in the previous limud, that it should be that Asham also should be, if it's Shaloi Lishma, it should be possible. So Gemara, no. That who that it says is not talking about, it's not referring to the actual avoida of the carbon. It's talking about after you already bring the emurim. When you bring the emurim, that's not ma'akev anymore. So it's a reference to part of the process that's not ma'akev. That's not going to say that it's going to be possible. Kedetanya aval osham le'nemer hu elachar terse emurim who atma shloik tir emurim kasher. If he doesn't bring the emurim altogether, it's not ma'akev. It's going to be pasha. So therefore, if it says who by that part, it's not going to affect the validity of the carbon. So you can't learn out from chatas because it says who by asham, because it's a it's going on a part of the process of the carbon that's not ma'akev. So Gemara v'alahu lamali. If that's the case, why does the Torah say who by asham? If it's anyway on a part that's not ma'akev, so Gemara could have huna marav. It's coming to tell you the din of huna marav. Asham shenitik l're'iyah. If you have an asham that you had brought a second asham and you lost your asham, you set it aside, and then it got lost, and you set aside a second one. So therefore, this one becomes extraneous, and therefore the din is you have to be menachos l're'iyah. You give it to a shepherd to wait for it to get a mum, and then you'll be able to sell it and use the money to sell to someone who's bringing an asham. Or once it gets a mum, you'll sell to someone, use the money for oila. I'm sorry. I don't know. I'm not. I'm just a congregant here. Sorry.
Should I do that?
I don't know. You probably. Dr. Mara, I'm a Rav. Asham shenitik l'riyah. You can ask him. He's probably not going to say. Just let him leave it. I'm a Rav. Asham shenitik l'riyah v'shachtu stam kosher. If you menatik l'riyah. So now the din is that once it was set aside, it's supposed to become the money is intended to be an oila. If you shech it stam, it's kosher l'shem oila. So since its intention, its new designation now is as an oila. So now even if you shecht it becomes an oila automatic. So Gemara nitik inline nitik loy. Since it says who, it tells you only if it was menatik, if you made it into if you separated it for the shepherd. But if you weren't menatik, and if you didn't separate it for the shepherd, loy amakra hu bevayasa yehe. That's why the Torah tells you who, that it remains. You learn that out from who. That tells you that it will remain an asham until you're menatik it. So that's what we learn out from the lashon of who. Amarav. By the 3 lines on the bottom. Amarav. Minchas ha'omer shecomes to. So we had said, okay, let's reset ourselves. In the Mishnah, we said that a mincha, the Yidusha loy lishma, it's kosher. It's a kosher mincha, but it's loyal al m'shem chayva. You don't get a kapara from it. We just said that a minchas chayta and a minchas kanayis are exceptions to that. They're entirely possible. Like the chatas by a carbon, it's entirely possible. Pesach and chatas, the same thing for minchas chayta and minchas kanayis. Rav is going to extend that. Amarav, minchas ha'omer shekamsa shaloi lishma. What about a minchas ha'omer? A mincha that's brought on the second day of Pesach that is going to make it that you're allowed to eat the barley in the fields, makes that it's no longer chadash. You do that shaloi lishma psula. That's going to be like the minchas chayta and the minchas kanayis. If you do shaloi lishma, it's not just going to be kosher v'al b'mshem chayv. It's going to be possible. Why is that? This mincha is a different kind of carbon. It's something that's being brought to be mater the barley in the fields. So it has a function. It has a utility. So if you do it shaloi lishma, that it's not going to perform its function. It's not just that it's not machaper, but it passes the carbon altogether. And the same thing by a nazir. The asham that's brought by a nazir, which is intended that the Nazir now will be able to drink wine and cut his hair. So it also has a function. So such a thing, if you do it Shaloi Lishma, it's going to be possible. The Asham Mitzayra. That same thing with an Asham Mitzayra. So now, we're not talking, now we're going away from Menachos. We said a Minchas Aimer, and also by certain Karbanis, these two Karbanis, which we say that normally a carbon that's brought Shaloi Lishma, it's Kashav Leval Mishem Chayva, but a Asham Nazir, Asham Bavai Nazir, and a Mitzayra that it allows him to go back into the Machna, since these are performing functions. Since they're not able to perform their function, they're going to be entirely possible. Tnan. In our Mishnah, we had said that every mincha that's shaloi l'shma is kosher, but except for a chayta and kenayis, that those are possible. Why don't we include minchas aimer according to what we just said? It sounds like it was minchas aimer is like every other mincha. So tomorrow, kiktani boy yachid, when our Mishnah was only discussing minchas that were brought by yachid. But tziba like tani. Ein achanami minchas aimer that shaloi l'shma is possible, but it wasn't. Our Mishnah wasn't dealing with minchas tzibur, and since aimer is a minchas tzibur, it wasn't addressed.
Mitzayra doesn't bring a mitzvah.
Mitzayra and Nazir.
Those are not tzibur; those are individuals.
I mentioned those.
Oh, well, that's going to be the next question. That's those are asham. Those are not our Mishnah, right? Our Mishnah is talking about minchas. Minchas, we said minchas chayta and minchas kinayis. So we should have said minchas aimer. We're going to ask in a minute, what about the Mishnah in Zvachim, the first Mishnah in Zvachim, which has chutz mi Pesach and Chatas. That's a different Mishnah. And then the second question, Kitani Baba Glalatza, Baba Glal Zevach, like Tani. In addition, the Minchas Aimer comes together with another carbon. You bring a Shlomim, I think, on Kivshei Atzeres that goes together with the Minchas Aimer. So since it's joined with the carbon, it's not discussed. And also, third answer, Kitani Hanach She'en Kabul Lanzman, how the Kabul Lanzman like Kitani. Minchas Aimer is on the second day of Pesach, Bedavka, we're only talking about things that don't have a specific time. Then we asked the question that you asked. Right? The same theory will apply that since they're not performing their function, they're going to be entirely possible. What about the mission in the beginning of Zvachim? We say a carbon shaloi lishman is also kasha v'le'alu. Chutz mi pesach v'chatas. V'misa listinami chutz mi asham nazir v'asham mitzayra. Why don't we also exclude Asham Nazir and Asham Mitzayra in the Mishnah? So we can answer. Since you can't categorically say that a Asham is imalu, it's going to be entirely possible because you have other kinds of Ashamas which are not lahachsher. The Asham of Gzelis, if someone who steals, and Asham Ila, if someone who benefits from Kachim, the Kapara Asu. Since on those it's going to be kosher v'le'al b'al shem chayva. So we don't say hashamas. We don't say some hashamas are going to be pasul and some are going to be kosher. So Gemara, in fact, Gemara, Ma'ishna asham nazav asham mitzayra debo lahachshav aleich shiroi. We're saying that we didn't want to say asham mitzayra and asham nazir since they're in the category of hashamas and it's not categorical that all hashamas are either pasul or kosher. We didn't want to bring it up. We didn't want to say something that would be prone to confusion. We'll say asham. We don't want. We want to say. We only wanted to say like asham. This is the din of chatas and this is the din of pesach. We didn't want to do asham because some are kosher and some are pasul.
Okay.
Yeah. Correct. But why is that the case? Why are we saying that? Why are we taking that, saying that, but the din is in the end that Asham Nazir, Asham Mitzayra is going to be pasul, and Asham Gzelis and Asham Ilus are going to be kosher v'le'alu b'am shem chayva. Why don't we say Asham Gzelis and Asham Ilus or the kapara asu? We say since they're not performing their function, so if you do it shaloi lishma, it's not machap, so therefore it doesn't perform its function. Therefore, it's entirely possible. Haninami bola kapara v'lo kipru. Why don't we say the asham gzelis and the asham ilis, all other ashamas also, they're intended to provide a kapara, even though they're not providing a pure function that it's going to allow, let's say, like a mitzayir, that he could go back into the machna, or the nazir, that he's able to cut his hair and drink wine, but they're there to provide a kapara, and you're not getting the kapara. Since it's not performing that function, it should be also possible. We know that there's a distinction between something that is mechaper and something that, like we said, performs a function. Mechaper isbahu the asul acham misa, because there are occasions in which something that is a mechaper, even the person died, you still will bring it after he died. So you see, it has more staying power. It's not as fatal if you're not able to get the kapara. Obviously, after someone dies, he's not getting a kapara, and even so, you could bring it lacham misa. So you see, the kapara is not as strong. But machshirin less budas lacham misa. If someone dies, an asham nazir and an asham mitzvah, you're not going to bring it because there's no point. It's there to be mata the person. You're not being mata the person. It's not. Where do we see this? Ha'isha sheviya chatasa u'meisa. Where do we have that you bring a machaper acham misa, a woman who's a yeledes, that she has to bring a chatas, an oila, and a shlomim? If she bore a chatas u'meisa, yaviu yarshim by lasa. The yarshim will bring the oila. Oilasa u'meisa la yaviu yarshim chatasa. They won't bring the chatas. So and Rashi explains, in the case of Isha Yeledes, strangely enough, the chatas is the machshir. It's what allows her to become kosher, to eat kachim. And the oila is the mechaper for the avera that she probably cursed out her husband during the labor, during the pain of the labor. So that's a mechaper. So we say the oila is the mechaper and the chatas is the machshir. Counterintuitively. Usually chatas is a mechaper. Yeah, that's what I'm saying. It's counterintuitive, but that is we learn out over there that that's the facts. It's a complicated Gemara over there, but the end result is like that. So you see that you can bring the oila, since it's a mechaper la'acham misa, but the chatas, so there's a machshir, you can't bring la'acham misa. So you see that's where we see that you can't bring a mechaper la'acham misa. Master Yehuda Breder of Shimon ben Pazi, machshir nami milesbu das la'acham misa. We also have machshir that come la'acham misa. But tanan hamafresh moyes l'nzirus, someone who separated money for his naziris, meaning for his karbanos that he has to bring as a nazir, loy nanin v'loy mayelin. He has to bring a shlomim and a oila and a chatas. So we say, I think maybe an asham, a oila and an asham and a shlomim. So if he separated money, but he didn't say which money is going to go for which thing, the din is you're not allowed to be nana from it. Midrabanan. V'loy mayelin is not going to be, but it's not going to be considered mila. Mila only applies to money that was set aside for kachem kachim, not for kachem kalim. So since some of it could be come as a shlomim, and the shlomim is only kachem kalim, so there's no din me'il on it. Mace, but if he died, if he died and he had such money set aside, yipul in nedava, it becomes a nedava. And if he separated the money, he said this money should be chatas, and this money should be the oil, and this money should be the shlomim. To make chatas, the money for the chatas go into the ocean, because you can't make chatas shemesa baila in his misa. So this is money, so you can't kill money. So instead, you throw it into the ocean. And loinan and loy mayalin, and there's not going to be you're not going to have a din of meila on it. The but because it's money, so it's not going to, since it's going to be lamisa, it loses its in meila. The money for the oila you should use for an oila, and if he died, it's going to have a din meila. So you see, you bring an oila with that leftover money. The mei shlamim yavi behen shlamim nechalim yamechad ve'etun lechem. It's going to have some of the din of a regular shlamim. It's going to have the din of a shlamim for a of a shlamim for Naziris, which is only for 1 day instead of 2 days. It doesn't have the din of nazir that needs lechem. Both oil and the shlamim are used to be machshir the nazir because lachamisa. You see, you bring lachamisa. So your whole distinction that you wanted to make between money that's going for a machshir and something that's going for a machshir and something that's mechaper, you said only a mechaper is lachamisa, but not a machshir. But there's a machshir that's coming lachamisa. Amar Papa Hakika Amar of Yirmiyah Lemetinu Hechsher Kavua de Balachamisa. It's only we don't find the Hechsher that's Kavua because in this case, any one of these three things could be the Machsher. It could be the Shlam, it could be the Oila. So, but we don't know for sure which one it is. So therefore, they brought Lachamisa. Now the Hechsher she'ena Kavua. The Amar Ma Gilach Alecha Mishlam Mibiyatza. You could be Yaitza and be Megalayach and be Mutter with any one of the three things. Okay, we'll stop over here. His teretz is that this is not a real machshir, so to speak. You don't need all three of them to be machshir. You only need either the Oila or the Shlamim or the Chatas of a Nazir to be machshir. So you can't say, when he dies, you can't say, it's not similar to other machshirim that you have to bring, let's say by Mitzvah, you must bring this carbon, and otherwise you're not after death. Well, you have to bring it. So we're saying the reason why this is brought after death is because since it's a flexible machshir, you have other options to be machshir. So it's not like something that where its utility is only is to provide a heter. It could provide a heter, but you could have also provided a heter with the shlamim by bringing that first. Then you bring la'achamisa. But derech klal, what's the svara?
Yeah,
I'm saying. The svara we're trying to say is that a hechsher, it's there to do something.
right.
So there's no point to bring it lachamisa.
Right.
And that's what we're trying to be distinguished between that and a kapara.
Yeah.
Kapara, you find you do bring lachamisa because, but we're saying that I always see. So the Gemara asks, I see you do bring these lachamisa. So you see that a machshir can be these nazir. These three karbanos,
Not the
nazir,
other stuff.
not the right. There's no ashram nazir, but we see that you bring a lachamisa. So the Gemara answers, no, that's different. That could be brought lachamisa because it's not a classic machshir, because each one of them might be the machshir, might not. Any one of them, if you bring any one of the three karbanos, the nazir immediately can be megaleach, and he's allowed to drink wine, and he's out of his nazirs.
You see, doesn't provide a function. What does it provide then? Why